Most buses at night feel quiet, peaceful even. The city slows down, traffic fades away, and the streets belong to the few people still trying to get home. But sometimes, a bus ride late at night can take you somewhere you were never meant to go. My name is Ethan. This happened to me about 2 years ago, on a rainy Thursday night. Back then, I worked late shifts at a small marketing office downtown. Nothing exciting, just long hours and too much coffee. Most nights I caught the last city bus home around midnight. It was the only bus that passed near my apartment. Missing it meant a 2-mile walk in the dark, so I never missed it, at least not until that night. The rain started around 10:30 p.m. At first, it was just a light drizzle, but by the time I finished work, the storm had turned serious. Thunder rolling across the sky, lightning cutting through the clouds, and rain coming down hard enough to blur the streetlights. When I checked the time, my stomach dropped. 11:57 p.m. The last bus left at midnight. "Damn it," I muttered. I grabbed my bag and rushed out of the building. The streets were almost empty, rain splashing against the pavement, water running along the sidewalks. I started jogging toward the bus stop. My shoes slipped on the wet pavement as I turned the corner. And that's when I saw it. The bus, already pulling away from the stop. "Hey, wait!" I waved my arms and ran faster. The driver must have seen me in the mirror. Because the bus slowed just enough for the doors to open, I grabbed the railing and climbed inside, breathing hard. The doors closed behind me, and the bus started moving again. "Cutting it close tonight," the driver said, without looking back. I laughed nervously. "Yeah, thanks for waiting." He didn't respond. I walked down the aisle toward my usual seat, the one near the back by the window. The bus was completely empty, which wasn't unusual for that late at night. I sat down and leaned back in the seat. Outside, rain streaked across the windows. The storm made everything feel strangely calm, almost peaceful. I was exhausted, the kind of exhaustion that settles deep in your bones. Between the rain and the quiet hum of the engine, my eyelids started getting heavy. Just a quick rest, I thought. I closed my eyes. I must have drifted off for a minute or two, because when I opened my eyes again, the bus was full. Not just a few people, packed. Every seat was occupied. People standing in the aisle, crowded shoulder to shoulder. My heart skipped. Wait, what? Just a moment ago, the bus had been empty. No stops. No doors opening. So where had all these passengers come from? For a few seconds, I just stared, trying to figure it out. Maybe I had slept longer than I thought. Maybe the bus had stopped somewhere. Maybe. But something about the passengers felt wrong. They were completely silent. No conversations. No phone screens lighting up the dark. No movement. Just people sitting there, staring forward. The bus rolled through the wet streets. Thunder echoed outside. Lightning flashed through the windows. And in that flash, I noticed something strange. None of the passengers were blinking. I rubbed my eyes. Okay, Ethan, you're just tired. That had to be it. Long day, late night, your brain starts playing tricks. I leaned my head back again. Don't think about it. And before I knew it, I fell asleep again. When I woke up the second time, the bus was empty. Every seat, every aisle, completely empty, just like when I first got on. My heart started pounding. What the hell? I looked around. No passengers. No signs anyone had been there. And the bus hadn't stopped once. I was sure of that. That's when I smelled it. A sharp, bitter smell. Cigarette smoke. No, not cigarettes. Something stronger, like an old hand-rolled cigar. I turned slowly and saw someone sitting beside me, an old man. I swear he hadn't been there a second ago. His face was wrinkled and weathered, gray stubble covering his jaw, and between his fingers, a small burning cigar. The smoke drifted slowly through the air. He took a long drag, then looked at me. His eyes were dark, tired, like someone who hadn't slept in years. "You're new," he said quietly. I blinked. "What?" He exhaled smoke and stared out the window. "I've been riding this bus every night for 30 years. I laughed nervously. "That's a long commute." The old man didn't smile. "After midnight," he said slowly, "no living person gets on this bus." A chill ran through my spine. The old man sat beside me quietly. The smell of the cigar smoke drifted through the air. Outside, the rain continued to pour, tapping against the bus windows like thousands of tiny fingers. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The only sound was the engine and the low rumble of thunder in the distance. I finally turned toward him. "What do you mean, no living person gets on this bus?" The old man didn't look at me. He kept staring out the window, as if the answer was somewhere in the darkness outside. Then he took another slow drag from the cigar. "After midnight," he repeated quietly. "This bus belongs to something else." I let out a short laugh, not because it was funny, but because sometimes, when something feels too strange, your brain tries to turn it into a joke. "Okay," I said. "So what, this is some kind of ghost bus?" The old man finally turned his head toward me, and the look in his eyes made the humor disappear instantly. "You think I'm joking." It wasn't a question, just a statement. "I've been riding this route every night for 30 years, he continued. "Same driver, same road, same stops." He leaned slightly closer. "And the same things happen every single night." Thunder cracked outside. The flash of lightning lit up the inside of the bus for half a second. In that brief moment of light, I could have sworn I saw figures sitting in the seats around us again. Then the darkness returned, and the bus was empty. I rubbed my face. "Look," I said quietly, "I think I'm just tired. Long day at work, that's all." I think the old man nodded slowly. "That's what everyone says." Then he crushed the cigar against the metal seat frame beside him. The smoke curled upward and disappeared into the dim air of the bus. "Let me tell you something," he said. "1 year ago, on a night just like this," he gestured toward the rain outside. "Storm, lightning, empty bus." His voice had changed slightly, lower, colder, like someone remembering something they wished they could forget. "I got on at the same stop you did tonight." He leaned back in his seat. The bus was empty, except for me. I sat by the window, just like you, and after a few minutes, I felt something strange. Someone was watching me. I shifted in my seat. "Watching you?" The old man nodded slowly. So I looked up, and there was a man sitting 2 rows ahead of me. I frowned. "Someone got on the bus?" "No." The old man shook his head. "The bus never stopped." The storm outside grew louder. Rain slammed harder against the glass. For a moment, the entire bus rattled as thunder rolled through the sky. "The man was just sitting there," the old man continued, facing forward, completely still. I remember thinking maybe he had been there the whole time and I just didn't notice. but something about him felt wrong. "How?" I asked. The old man didn't answer immediately. Instead, he leaned closer and whispered. His eyes, they looked empty, like there was nothing behind them. I tried to say something to him, but my voice wouldn't come out, like something in my throat had locked up. The bus turned a corner. Street lights passed through the windows in quick flashes of yellow light. For a second, the old man's face looked pale, almost sick. "And then," he said slowly, the man raised his finger and pointed at me. "What did he say?" I asked quietly. The old man looked directly at me, and in a low whisper he repeated the words, "You shouldn't be here." I felt a chill run down my back. What happened next? The old man's eyes drifted back to the window. He disappeared. Just like that. No stop, no sound, just gone. That's when I realized something. What? This bus? He looked around slowly. Doesn't carry the living after midnight. I shook my head. That doesn't make sense. The old man shrugged. It doesn't have to. For a moment, the bus felt incredibly quiet, like the entire world outside had disappeared. Just the road, the rain, and us. Eventually, the old man stood up. His knees cracked as he straightened. "I've said too much tonight," he muttered. I looked up. "You're getting off? There's always another stop." He walked slowly down the aisle toward the back of the bus. The dim lights flickered above him as he moved, and just before he reached the rear door, the bus lights flickered again. When they came back on, the old man was gone. I sat there frozen, my heart beating faster. "Okay," I whispered to myself. "That's not possible." There was nowhere he could have gone. The bus hadn't stopped. The doors hadn't opened. But the seat where he had been sitting was empty. The cigar smell had disappeared, and the air felt colder than before. That's when I noticed something. Someone sitting a few rows ahead. A man reading a newspaper. The rustling sound of the paper was the only noise in the entire bus. It was strange, because who reads a newspaper at 1 a.m. on an empty bus, in the middle of a storm? The man's face was hidden behind the paper, but he seemed completely absorbed in whatever he was reading, like the world around him didn't exist. My mouth felt dry. "Hey," I said quietly. "Excuse me." No response. The newspaper rustled again as he turned a page. "Sir?" Still nothing. Outside, lightning flashed again. For a brief moment, the bus interior lit up bright white, and in that instant, I saw something that made my blood run cold. The man's hands were covered in blood. Fresh, dark, dripping slowly down his fingers. My voice caught in my throat. "Sir, are you okay?" The newspaper slowly began to lower. And when it did, I saw his face. Half of his skull was crushed inward. Blood covered his forehead. One eye hung slightly lower than the other, like it had been knocked loose by some violent impact. His eyes looked straight into mine, empty, just like the old man had described. And the man smiled. The man with the newspaper smiled, but it wasn't a normal smile. It was slow, stiff, almost like the muscles in his face weren't used to moving anymore. And for a moment, I couldn't breathe. His crushed face was staring straight at me. Blood ran from the side of his forehead and down his cheek. One of his eyes looked wrong, like it had shifted slightly out of place. I couldn't move. My body felt frozen to the seat. My heart was beating so hard I could hear it in my ears. Then suddenly, the bus lights flickered, just once. When the lights came back on, the man's face was completely normal. No blood, no injuries, just a regular man sitting there holding a newspaper. He leaned closer and looked at me. He asked calmly, "You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." My mouth felt dry. I couldn't finish the sentence because I wasn't sure what I had just seen. The man chuckled softly. "This bus does that to people." What? What do you mean?" He folded the newspaper slowly. "Things appear. Things disappear. And sometimes people see things they shouldn't." His tone had changed, lower now, more serious. Then he looked directly into my eyes. "Tell me something," he said quietly. "Did you see anything strange tonight?" For a moment I didn't answer. I thought about the passengers appearing, the old man with the cigar, the crushed face. But something about the man made me hesitate, like telling him the truth might be a mistake. I think I'm just tired," I said. "Long day." He studied me for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Good. Because if you saw something," he leaned closer, "you should forget it." A cold chill ran through my chest. "Why?" The man didn't answer immediately. Instead, he glanced toward the front of the bus, then back at me. "Because people who notice things on this bus," he lowered his voice, "don't always get off it." The words hit me like ice water. "What are you talking about?" The man leaned back in his seat. "The same thing the old man told you." My stomach dropped. You heard that?" The man nodded. "I hear everything on this bus." Outside, the storm had grown stronger. Lightning lit up the sky. Thunder rolled across the empty streets. The bus kept moving through the rain. But something felt different now, like the road outside wasn't the same road anymore. I looked around the bus, and suddenly I realized we weren't alone. Passengers had appeared again. Every seat, every aisle, people sitting silently, faces pale, eyes empty. Some stared forward, some looked out the windows, and some were looking directly at me. My breath caught in my throat. Where did they come from? The man with the newspaper didn't look surprised. They were always here. "Always?" He nodded slowly. "This bus carries the same passengers every night." A flash of lightning illuminated the bus, and in that moment I saw something horrifying. Some of the passengers were injured. One woman had a deep cut across her forehead. Another man's arm bent at a strange angle. A teenager near the back had glass shards embedded in his face, like victims of a terrible accident. My voice trembled. What happened to them?" The man sighed quietly. "This bus crashed years ago." The words echoed inside my head. "Crashed?" "Late at night," he said. "Storm just like this one." The driver lost control on the highway. He looked around slowly. Most of us never made it out. The bus suddenly jerked slightly, as if hitting a rough patch in the road. I looked toward the driver, and for the first time, I noticed something strange. The driver hadn't moved once since I got on the bus, not even to check the mirrors. His hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, but his head was tilted forward, as if his neck had been broken. I felt a wave of panic. "I need to get off this bus." The man nodded. "Yes, you do." Then he leaned closer. "And you need to do it soon." "Why?" He looked toward the road ahead. because once the bus reaches the end of the route, he paused. Everyone stays. My heart raced. Where is the next stop? The man glanced toward the front door. Coming up. Then suddenly, the bus accelerated. The engine roared louder. The storm outside grew more violent. Rain hammered against the windows. The passengers began to turn their heads toward me, one by one, slowly. Every empty pair of eyes focused on me. My chest tightened. "I don't think they want me leaving," I whispered. The man stood up. "They don't." Then he walked toward the front door. The bus was still moving fast. Too fast. I shouted, "What are you doing?" He turned and looked at me, and for a brief moment, his face looked exactly like it had before. Broken, bloodied, dead. "You need to get off this bus," he said. "No." The bus slowed suddenly. A stop sign appeared ahead through the rain. The doors opened. The man stepped onto the stairs, then looked back at me one last time. "If you stay," he said quietly, "you'll be riding this route forever." And then he jumped right out of the moving bus. I didn't think. I just ran down the aisle, past the silent passengers. Their eyes followed me the entire way. I jumped off the bus, landing hard on the wet pavement. Rain soaked my clothes instantly. My heart pounded as I turned back toward the road. The bus was pulling away, slowly disappearing into the storm. But as lightning flashed across the sky, I saw its true shape. The bus wasn't normal. Its paint was blackened, metal twisted, windows cracked, like a vehicle that had burned in a terrible crash. Inside the windows, the passengers were still there, watching me, and near the back, two faces stood out, the old man with a cigar, and the man with a newspaper. Both smiling. The bus vanished into the rain, and I stood there for a long time, not moving, not breathing, just watching the empty road. I never took the late bus again, but sometimes, when storms roll through the city late at night, I hear the sound of an engine passing outside my apartment. And if I look out the window, I can see the same bus driving down the street. Still full of passengers, still running the same route. And every time it passes, one empty seat waits by the window for the next rider.